saints. Did anyone had a dream or a vision last night? No dream, no vision, no voice from God. I think we as a church family, we're very great with content. We like all the facts and we want to learn more stuff, and we get sometimes so full. But I don't think we always do well in processing what we know. Sometimes miracles happens, real big miracles, like God connecting, and we keep it for ourselves. It's like, what's happening here? Is it a university? Is it an Adventist local church university where knowledge and content, just add new books and new stuff? I think we have to learn sometimes the skill to process. I'm going to ask George just to come. I just want to press this point because I think it's just great. George, my good brother, forgive me. We'll be in the kingdom together and we can make it up then. When I grew up, the pictures of Jesus was like an older fellow. I just want you to think. George, if you just turn around, this is what Jesus looked like in the time of the New Testament. He was baptized by God's Spirit at the age of 27. Can you, in your heart, look at this man and says, Rabbi, teacher, can you? Or is that more like an older kind of thing? I had to kind of readjust in my mind, more than just change furniture in my mind. I had to come to a different place where Jesus was someone I can relate to. Of course, George, you know that Jesus' power came with his connecting with God. You know that. You're aware of that. Amen. I mean, to lead all these people, you know, when there's demon possession and sickness, you need God to show you what to do every day. Is that true?
Amen, absolutely.
Yeah. So, George, reflect the image of Jesus well. Let God speak to you. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, my brother. Be careful when you talk and preach about Moses, okay? Do you know why? He's up there. And he's saying, no, that's not what happened. Be careful when you preach about Elijah. Okay? Do you know why? He's there. That's not what happened. Or Noah. No, Noah. Enoch. Be careful. Be careful what you say about Enoch. Because he said, that's not what it was. And one day I said to you, you know that sermon you preached on that Sabbath? Well, you used my name, but that was not me. I have 5 brothers. 4 of them has been in ministry all their lives. So I've got 4 pastor brothers. And my 5th brother just been asked by the conference to be a pastor. And his son is a pastor. Have mercy. I'm so dysfunctional sometimes. When our wives get together, they say, talk about something else. I mean, is that in your... That's my world. I don't know a lot of stuff, but I think I go deep. Because that's my world. Adventism is not a faith to me. It's like a lifestyle. I mean, even when I'm on holiday, I like to go to church. My wife found it very interesting. It's like, you go on holiday, you have to put on your church shoes. Yeah, that's what happened. Around about the age of 9, maybe 9.5, maybe 10, I can't remember. Maybe around about 9.5. We lived on a farm up. It was mountains. And one day, big men came to our farm all suited, and they were prospectors, the guys that can see in the ground with all the machines. And they said to my dad, "I think you're a rich man and you don't know it." And my dad liked it, and we like it too. And he says, "We think they're deep." This is, look at the mountains and look at the formation. There's some stuff down that we can grind it, and it can be like baby power stuff. I mean, I don't know, it's a name for it, I forgot the name. Something like it. So it's like, suddenly we look at our farm differently. I mean, it's more than just trees and mountains and dirt. It's like something special. So you walk softly on this ground now. Because it's like holy now. Oh. So my dad took this man serious, and my dad organized by some workers to dig a few holes. I don't know, it's another word, but like holes to look at the formation. Let's go down and down and down. And so at the age of 9.5, I came to my dad. I said, "Dad, I want to go down there too. I want to see what's like. So my dad said, "No, why would you go down there?" And Dad, if there's something important, I really would like to kind of touch it and see it and be there. And my dad kind of says, "No, it's just a very simple idea. It's not going to work." And this hole was getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Like it just looked like forever for me. Probably about 3 or 4 meters. But it looks very deep. So one day my dad says, after I asked him many times, "Dad, really, get me in the secret of this thing. Let me go there and see." So one day Dad said, "All right. Now it's quite a job to get into that hole where we were. It's with a rope with knots on. And, you grab on the knot. Does that make sense? Okay. So you grab this rope and you go down, 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 and it felt like forever to go down in this hole. I got in this hole, and there was nothing. So disappointing. Really, it's just like the dirt here and the dirt on top just look the same. What a disappointment. I mean, I thought it's going to smell, look. I thought that I've got the secret here. Nothing. I stood there. I think maybe it felt like a long time, maybe half a minute. And I was in the center of the world, center of the earth. And nothing big happened. And then I remember Dad said to me, "Just look up. Just look up." My dad was pretty smart. I found it out later. So I looked up, and you know what happened if you looked up? The dirt and the wind kind of all fall on your face. Sometimes if you're right in the center, it's very uneasy. All the dust just came on your eyes. And he said to me, "What do you see?" I see a lot of dust. He said, "Yeah, that's good. Just kind of, this is life." And then later he said to me, "Well, look up again." And I look up, and you know what? I developed a little bit of skill to look past the dust. And I saw the clouds. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, life was more than dust. I could see the clouds. And he said, "Do you see?" I said, "Yes, I see it. I see the clouds come past." And I stood there probably another 10 seconds. It kind of felt very long. And then Dad just kind of worked on my soul and my mind. And he said to me again, "Look up. Look up." And I developed one more skill. A skill to look past the dust and the skill to kind of look just past the clouds. Ladies and gentlemen, on that day, on the age of 9.5, in broad sunlight, I saw the stars. The deeper you go down on the earth, the brighter the stars. And it changed my world. Nobody told me before that even when the sun comes up, the stars don't disappear. I mean, was I stupid or what? What did I think the stars go? The fact that I didn't see them, does that mean they're not there? And it changed my view of the world and God and myself. That you can see stars in the day if you know where to look. Especially if the hole is deep. I just want to touch a little bit on calling as a leader. Ladies and gentlemen, somehow we need to develop the skill as leaders in a local church to see the dirt and the dust. But there's more. Sometimes we need to have the skill to look at beyond the dirt and at least see the clouds. But this weekend, I just want to challenge you. See the stars. They're there. You don't have to make it up. You don't have to make it up. It's there before you, before I arrived. Before I was in that big hole, the stars was there. I just want to read you a verse or two from Peter. Yesterday in the workshop on that side, I really enjoyed the workshop on the X Factor. And I sat there and I thought, wow, would my church survive without me? And I came to the reality, I think they will. I think they will. Am I kind of in the blockage there? If they remove me? But as I sat there, I thought to myself, the fact that God has put me in that role means that from God's perspective, I can make a contribution. So it's like a leader that has a leader with a mission will be seen by the people. Really? If you got something to say and you live it, people will know it. It comes from the book of Peter. Let me just remind you. Second book of Peter. You've read it many times. You probably have memorized it. Vadim is not here, but Friday night, him and I shared a room together. I like Vadim. He came to visit us in the West, and he asked me, "Do you snore?" And I kind of says, "Do you snore?" Have mercy. And he says, "I give you permission to kind of wake me up when I snore." And I says, "Well, you got the same permission." Twice in that night, I felt something shake my feet. And about 3 o'clock on Sabbath morning, I heard someone pack up their bag. And I heard the car, and I felt so bad. And I saw him take the service Sabbath morning, and I took away all his sleep. Have mercy. I don't know how he survived. I have to make up with Vadim sometimes. Please, if you share a room with Vadim, I don't know what to do, but don't snore. Vadim, God bless you, my brother. I don't even want to tell you that. It's pretty embarrassing, but anyway. 2 Peter chapter 1. And I take this verse pretty serious. And I really challenge you to take this serious. I'm reading from verse 3 from 2 Peter 1. Are you with me? 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 3. I'm reading from the NIV Bible, not because it's good, that's all I understand. It says, His divine power. Help me, somebody. You know, it's one thing to know this verse and memorize it. It's something else to process this verse. His divine power has given us, the NIV Bible says, everything. We don't serve like a half full cup church. We don't serve like a half full. He's given it everything. I have to admit, when I finished Heidelberg College in 1977, I did not understand this verse. That God has given us everything. That this is all or nothing for God. It's not a half-half, it's all or nothing. Verse 4 says, through these, He has given us His very great and precious promise. Last night, someone reminded me, or this morning, that this individual used God's promises as a pattern for prayer. You know, last night we talked about the sanctuary, and we didn't even have time to kind of process that. For some of you probably had questions, or this feels a little bit strange. We need to develop the gift to claim God's promises. That's what it says. And we cannot know the promises unless we read it, internalize it, have some incarnational promise ministry, and says, God, on the basis of your word, here I am. You agree with that? I don't know, Altors, if I do church well when it comes to promises. I don't know if I always pray well when it comes to promises. You know, at the end of the day, we need to worship God the way He wants to be worshipped. I mean, it's nice to be contemporary. It's nice to be traditional. It's nice to be kind of in with the culture. But at the end of the day, I need to worship God the way He wants to be worshipped. Is that true? Well, where did I see the word calling in here? Verse 3, the end. That's it. Okay, thank you. His divine power has given us everything we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of Him who called us by His glory and His goodness. It is God's goodness that's the paper around your calling. It's not necessarily your gifts and how popular you are with the church. The wrapping around our calling is God's goodness. Does that make sense? I remember the first time we went to Vanuatu, I also like any other person, God, where's Vanuatu? What does it mean? You've got to learn a new language. So I remember as the little plane was going through Vanuatu, it's 80 islands. Well, 80 islands with that people are on. The many don't have any people. And I remember looking down at these islands, and this is my prayer. Dear God, give me the gift to love these people. It's a pretty simple prayer. And I really did not understand the implications of that prayer. But you know what? I really fell in love with the people, with the Douw Venter people, which was a God thing. And ever since, when I go to a new place, I kind of remind myself, this church, this eldership, this leadership, it's going to work when God gives me the love for the people. Love the people God's way. I'm not too sure if I think back on my church, Darren, all the people and all their challenges and all their distinctiveness and all their comments and this background. Dear God, help me to love the people the way you love. That doesn't really sink into me. I mean, it's easy to say, I'll give my life for you. Or I give my last cent to you. Or my last dollar. That's easy to say. But do we live on that level of commitment to our church? There are many examples of calling in Scripture. There's many that speaks to me. There's many scriptures. I like the John Baptist story. Imagine just with me, John Baptist, according to the writer of Mark. Now, we know that the writer of the Gospel of Mark and the writer of Peter were good mates. We know that. In actual fact, Mark was a pretty smart person. He was not a disciple. He was very young. Mark kind of learned everything he could from Paul. He was Paul's assistant. So he had this years with Paul. So Mark knew everything that Paul knew about God because he was like walking with Paul all the time. And then he became the assistant for Barnabas. And everything that Barnabas knew about God, Mark knew. It's like, man, this is your second mentor. And then the third one is Mark spent a long and many years with Peter. So everything that Peter knew about God, Mark knew. In actual fact, it's been suggested that when Peter was in Rome, the members of the church in Rome, one Sabbath went home very disappointed because Peter told them he's going to die soon. You know that story? And the suggestion is that the people from the church, maybe the church board, the leadership meeting, call Mark and says, Mark, you've been with Peter a long, long time. Why don't you write down his sermons and his stories? And it's very possible that the whole book of Mark was just summaries of speeches and sermons that Peter did. In actual fact, there's parts of Mark and parts of Peter that's kind of the same stuff. So, Mark had 3 names. The young guy, Mark. He had a Jewish name, John. He had a Greek name, Mark. And I think he had a Latin name that means the man with the short fingers or something like it. And Mark tells us about John the Baptist. And this is the challenge that the first chapter of Mark, he says, John the Baptist kind of was the voice of Elijah. So if Jesus was around about 27 or AD 27, John was like 6 months older. You remember that story? So imagine, John came there and he started preaching. He was really popular. That people will walk all the way from Jerusalem to the Jordan River to hear this popular guy, John the Baptist. And all the attention, and it's very possible that if John had asked for a revolution, that he'll have the whole church support him. It's just a fascinating story. And then when Jesus came along, the Bible says there was a little bit of argument to be on John's disciples and Jesus' disciples. It's like, wow, we thought we're the main act here. Well, what is these people start following this guy Jesus? It's just a fascinating story. And then John make this statement. I wish it was a Sabbath morning, 11 o'clock. It would have been nice. And he said in church that day, he says, ladies and gentlemen, God has called me for this time. I must decrease and he must increase. That is a Christian, I would say, Adventist leadership law. Of course, to be an elder is fantastic. Of course, it's a great responsibility. It's an honor when the church members look at you and see in you the gifts of God. And when church members see in you the anointing of the Spirit. This is fantastic. But the time will come that George will come. And you have to stand back graciously. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes the Spirit of God to do that. It was just 1 month before my year 12 graduation. I was just in with the boys. I was just like, life is just going well. I'm going to finish school and I'm going to be somebody. I haven't had my driver's license then, but it's like the world looks good. I need to finish my school. I'm going to be somebody now. And we had the school. I was in school. They called my name. And every time, I don't know your school that you attend, but they had the speakers. And when your name is called over the school speakers, man. So that day they called my name and my brother. My sister was still in the primary school that day. And I need to go to the principal's office. I've been there many times for many reasons. But I couldn't remember anything bad in the last 24 hours. You know, it's like, wow, what did I do again? You know, it's like, oh, there was no cameras, but there was probably teachers everywhere. I don't know, but here I walked to the principal's office. I'm kind of a little bit I'm pretty embarrassed. I mean, really? So the principal says, we had a call from the hospital. Your dad is in hospital. This is like 1 month before my final exam, or I don't know, it's like a big event. And we came to the hospital, they called my younger brother and my sister, and my mom was there already, and we stand around that bed, age of about 17 and a half. And I saw my father die. And I saw them closing his eyes, and my world fall apart. I mean, my world kind of crumbled. Because up to then, I really lived and I worshipped and I prayed and I did church on the back of the God of my father. Do you understand what that means? I lived and I practiced church on the faith of my father. He was a great believer. I mean, he could I think before pathfinders were invented, my father could read the stars and he could read. He became an Adventist, but my father had just one weakness in life. Well, probably more, but I'm aware of it. Every time, even on a Sabbath afternoon, when the Springboks played, he listened to it. Have mercy. I'm sure the death of Jesus on the cross will cover. I'm sure that. So every time the Springboks played, the radio on the Sabbath, God just blessed the waves. I grew up. That's the only thing you can do is when the Springboks plays, you can listen to the radio. All the other time, and holy. So here's my father. I saw him close his eyes, and he passed away. And my world just kind of fall apart. And I had to make kind of my own decisions. Where to go from there. For some of us, God calls us in a miraculous Damascus road. We see the light on one day, on one time. It's overwhelming. It changes us from the inside and the outside in 1 minute, in 1 second, in one event. And our life changed. For some of us, God revealed himself in 1,000 times, little bit at a time. I'm one of them. Maybe my faith is too small. But God has connected with me on 1,000 small ways. And every time I just take one step closer and closer. I'm probably a very slow learner. I'm a very slow learner. Do I get there often? I don't know. I was on the road up in North WA with these long roads. You know, it's just, over here it's probably long roads too, but there it's like, you go from one place, it takes you 8 hours. It's like, wow, that's just life. So on this trip, I decided, because I've got a vehicle with a radio in, and they've got an aerial like a mine aerial. You know, like, have you seen them with a little, but I took that aerial off a long time ago, because Madeleine, my wife, couldn't stand it. She says, this thing is just not normal. So I take it up, put it in the car. So on this trip, I decided, man, I'm all by myself. It's a long road. I'm going to put this aerial back. So I stop at this one isolated servo. And next to me stopped one of these really tracky guys. You know, it's just interesting people, tracky people. And I just kind of said to him, so by the way, on what channel do you guys talk? He said, channel 40. Okay, channel 40. So here I go. Channel, there's a lot of channels there. Came to channel 40. All right, now I'm one of the boys from the road now, you know. It just kind of lifted me up in a total different level now, you know. And I just hear them talk, and so through come this great message. It's a beautiful, sweet voice from a lady who said something like, 8 meters southbound. Wow, that's nice. It's clear. 8 meters southbound. Beautiful. I heard it. I had no idea what it means. And again it comes out. 8 meters southbound. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. What must I do with this? Must I memorize it? Or is it, I don't know, no idea. 8 meters southbound. I heard it about 3 times. 8 meters southbound. Yep, I'm probably in the right place, doing the right thing now. I'm hearing your voice clear. And then I saw this pilot vehicle. On top it says pilot. And again, this voice says 8 meters southbound. And I says, I've heard you. It's all clear. And then this lady come back with this pilot car. She looked at me, it's like, you must be stupid. And I just waved at her. And yeah, I've got it. And then probably half a minute later, I saw this huge mining thing come. It's one of those stuff you have to get off the road. It's like she was telling me kindly, get off the road. You're blocking something. And I totally miss it. And she looked at me and says, how is it possible? You got an aerial? You look at somebody that should know. You drive a Land Cruiser. I looked at her and I just could see, man. And the best I could do is just wave to her. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know the code of radios, go and do a radio course or something. 8 meters southbound. It means this is what it means. Nobody told me. It means there's a vehicle coming that's 8 meters long. I am southbound, so I have to stop. But nobody told me that. I know you think I'm stupid, and you're probably right. And you're probably right. Oh, no, not probably. You are right. Have mercy. As leaders, I don't know if we pick up messages from God and says, man, just stop the bus. I want to talk with you. Just stop what you're doing. Just stop. Because this thing coming your way is going to overwhelm you. Just stop. I survived to tell this story. The closer to the city, the more unclear the messages became. And I did not hear from God or the pilot lady again. To be a leader, I'm sure you got all the antennas right. You got all the hardware right. And it's time like this that we learn something about the software. The skill to hear God. And when you hear it, to say it, to act upon it. Could that be true? You know the principle of 101. It's not a university thing. It's just principle 101. That is when a principle that says as a leader, look for the 1% of members or followers. Look for the 1% of people that you can affirm and agree with and give it 100%. You understand the 101 principle? You look for that 1% of church members that's on the same page as you. Identify them and give it 100%. This chief had 3 sons. You know it, I'm going to remind you. His time was up in life. He had to be replaced. He had 3 sons, and he had to make a decision which of the 3 sons must take over his role. Because a part of real effective leadership is to make sure that each of our members is placed in a position where they can be effective. So he came up with this great understanding, and he told his sons, One of you will be the next chief of this village. This is a good one about the story, okay? And he says, take whatever you need, go out the front door, and don't come back unless you have this X factor. There's one thing that will convince the people that you can be the leader. Because leadership is not really about qualifications. There's something called relationships, is it? So imagine with me, these 3 boys going out the door, over the field, through the rivers, in the bush, up the mountains, looking for this one thing that could impact their village for many years to come. It's pretty daunting kind of expectation. So many days went past, and son 1 came back. And imagine with me, in his hands he had this little thing, and it's all these big leaves, like a Christmas wrappings. You open. So he came back home and he says, I really am hungry, I haven't eaten, I didn't eat. And the mother says, no, go and talk with your dad first. Let you see, and then you can come. So imagine son 1 come to his father and he says, Father, I found this thing. I found this thing. It's like a precious stone. Dad, we can sell this thing. We can buy whatever we need. We can build a whole new village. If we take this thing, we can sell it and we can make money. We can be in the map. And the father says, that's great. That's great. Some days later, son number 2 comes back home. And in his hand, he had this little thing. And he said to his mom, I need food. The mom says, go and talk with your father first. And he came to the father and he opened this, all, the leaves, opened it. And in his hand, he had this kind of flower that only blossoms like 1 in 100 years. And he says, Dad, we can get tourists, we can get people. People just come to our place, fill up our village, fill up our church. We got this real good thing that will draw people to us. They want to come and see what we've got. I mean, tourism is a great thing. You know what? Adventist tourism is an amazing thing. They can fill up your church and then they're gone again. Some of them stay for 5 weeks or 4 weeks, 1 week. Tourists, I know about tourists. And the dad says, good, that's wonderful. And many days later, son number 3 came back, all tired, worn out, clothes are tattered, hungry, thirsty. And he stood before his father and says, Dad, I looked up everywhere. I went in the caves. I crossed many rivers. I crossed many mountains. I spent days in the forest. I couldn't find anything. I really couldn't find anything. He says, Dad, I came home. He says, but last night, Dad, as I came over the hill, just behind our village, I stayed there the whole night. And as the sun came up this morning, I looked over the mountain and I saw a better place where there's plenty of water and plenty of grass for our cattle and sheep. I see a safe place. Dad, I bring to you a vision of a better place where we can resettle, where we can build, we will survive. All I have is a vision of a better village. You don't have to have a high school diploma. Who do you think became the next chief? Could I ask you just three in a row, just triads, and answer this one question. What is your vision for your church? What have you seen that others have not seen? What are you going to take back to your church? Of course, you can have great plans with fundraising, and that's great. We need fundraising. That's fantastic. Of course, we need more people in your church. Of course you do. But what's your vision for your church? Pastor Darren, can we take a few minutes just to kind of process that? If you're okay, just have 3 people is smart, because 3 is like, that's a good number. Just share with each other, what do you think is your vision for your church?